return in Jose Reyes. And then finally in the NL East, we've got the Nats and the Mets battling it out for the tops in that division. Currently, the Nats have a 1-game lead over the Mets for first place. You've got the Braves in the middle of the pack at 7 games back, and then you've got the Marlins at 11 games out, and the Phillies as the worst team in baseball, which I did successfully predict in my preseason predictions. I'm so proud of that. I hope that stays true. But you've got the Phillies at the worst team in baseball at 38 and 63 at 15 and a half games out of first in their division. Look for them to also potentially be big sellers before the trade deadline. And I think, the thing that cued me to that prediction this baseball preseason was when I saw them losing spring training games to college teams. That's when I went, you know what, I think the Phillies are going to be the worst team in baseball this year. And that has been the case the entire season. So, but anyway, that's your baseball meat for this week. Sorry I ran so much over on the opening segment, and we got so much other stuff to talk about, but hopefully that gets you caught up a little bit on where we're at with the baseball season, and I'm sure next week we'll have plenty of trades to go over and discuss yet, as the frenzy tomorrow before the deadline approaches should yield quite a bit of action, so stay tuned for that. All right, now in our next meat segment, I am going to get to talk about UFC 190, which is coming up this Saturday, August 1st in Rio de Janeiro. And if you are a longtime regular listener of the show, then you have already heard me rant and rave about one rowdy Ronda Rousey, who will be fighting in the main event. That's right, a female main eventing UFC 190. This is not the first time she's main evented a UFC event either. That's how incredible Ronda Rousey is and how much her career has taken off as well. But so anyway, Ronda will be fighting in the main event against a female named Beth Carrera. And I read an amazing article via Twitter. The Twitter handle would be at Keefe McKenna, KeefeMcKenna, and he writes for at MMA Latest News, and he did a great story on the main event between Carrera and Ronda Rousey. And whether you are an avid UFC fight fan or a casual to not at all UFC fight fan, this is a fight that there's going to be a high entertainment value for, and it should be can't miss entertainment from, like I said, from all parties regardless of your interest level, for several reasons. Ronda is the champ. She is undefeated. She is the best that has ever been. Most of her opponents lose within the first 10 to 15 seconds against her. She could easily beat the majority of men in her weight class in the exact same sport. So she's got all this star power and backs it up every time, and is undefeated and the champ. And she is going up against a woman named Beth Carrera, who is from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, where, as I mentioned, this fight is taking place. The reason it's taking place there is because that is where Ronda wanted this fight to happen, because Beth Carrera has successfully surpassed Miesha Tate as Ronda Rousey's most hated opponent ever in her life. Ronda Rousey hates Beth Carrera with a passion. And as soon as this feud is settled, then maybe hopefully she can move on to Cyborg and they can somehow reach a weight agreement to make that fight happen, as that would really then be the only last challenge for Ronda to conquer in her career, at least that's visible at this point, based off of who we have and where we're at in the sport. Now, if you want to know more about the specific reasons why Ronda hates Carrera so much, and Carrera hates Ronda too, but everybody hates Ronda because You ain't Ronda, so you hate Ronda. If you're a female MMA fighter, that's just the way it is. Unless Ronda's, like trained you or something like that, then that's totally different. But if you're in any way, a potential opponent, you hate Ronda Rousey if you're another female fighter because she's the best that's ever been, and she's head and shoulders above anybody and everybody else. Like I said, with the exception of Cyborg, and maybe Carrera. I believe that Beth Carrera is also undefeated. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I believe that this is two undefeated, top of their game people. And Carrera has been calling out and insulting and really provoking and getting under the skin of Ronda Rousey. And Rousey recently came out and said that she is not going to destroy Beth in 14 seconds like she did to the last woman she fought, Kat Zingano. She is going to intentionally prolong the duration of the fight to make Beth Carrera suffer and to embarrass her as much as she possibly can before at some point, at some unannounced and beknownst yet at this time point in the fight, Ronda will feel that she has, punished and tortured her enough and will finally grant her mercy. By throwing her in the armbar and making her tap out after she's, has an ounce of life left in her, or maybe just a little bit less. Now holy cow, like, this is awesome fight building stuff. Like, we didn't get any awesome build up like this in Mayweather, Manny, or, heck, even in the WWE where they write this stuff. We don't get a lot of build up like this. This is all genuine hate. And honestly, from an unbiased standpoint, because I will admit, first and foremost, I'm a huge Ronda Rousey fan in everything that woman does. She is just a remarkable human being, and I always enjoy her work and root for her success in anything and everything she does. That being said, her comments about her strategy going into this fight and the approach she's going to have in the cage, in the octagon, with Carrera, does concern me. As I said, as an unbiased individual who knows, a few things about fighting, UFC, mixed martial arts. It sounds to me, and I fear slightly, that the mind games that Carrera has been playing with Ronda from day one, from long time ago, which again, read the Keith McKenna article at MMA Latest News on Twitter that I mentioned, and you can know all about it. But I feel that the Carrera mind games may have officially, finally, fully worked and achieved the goal in regards to the fight with Ronda Rousey. Ronda Rousey has been unbeatable, period. She has taken the best that other fighters have to give and laughs it off and just boom, beats him 5 seconds later. There is no reason to believe that she's beatable yet at this point. However, everyone can lose. And that's made possible when people help beat themselves. You see it in football games all the time, with penalties, or drops, or whatever. Dumb play calls. Super Bowl. But when you hear Ronda say that she is going to intentionally not win the fight at the first chance she gets, I don't like that as a Rousey fan. I like it from an entertainment standpoint. I love it from an entertainment standpoint, and a hype standpoint, and a build standpoint. But I don't love it from her protecting her undefeated streak point. Because that strategy is going to open up more opportunities for her to make a costly error. That's really the things you haven't seen much of at all, if at all, in Ronda Rousey's professional UFC career, is her making a mistake and then, having to get out of it, or someone else capitalizing on it. Obviously, no one else has ever capitalized on it, or she wouldn't be undefeated. But one of the main reasons that no one's ever capitalized on one of her mistakes is because she doesn't make mistakes, because she ends the fights too fast. She'll take the other person's best shot and counter it, but she never gives the opponent a mistake to take advantage of that she has to work out of. Or if she does, it's very rare. You would have to dig through her entire career to really find a moment or two like that in any of her professional fights. So I am just a little bit concerned, like I said, that Ronda's approach and mentality and strategy going into this fight is creating more of a possibility for her to have her first ever loss, because she will create the possibilities and opportunities for that to happen by not ending the fight and not even really being there to win the fight, by being there to hurt a person and to make a person suffer, irregardless kind of the outcome. So don't be surprised if we get a 2-3 round fight here between Carrera and Ronda, and don't be surprised if Ronda is in control for pretty much all the fight. But don't be surprised if at some point before it's done, Carrera has a chance to win it, because Ronda will refuse to end it, as she has suggested, and I believe her. But so do not miss that. That is this Saturday night. I believe main event activities should start approximately 9 o'clock, I believe, on Fox Sports 1 or something of that lines. You can watch preliminary fights starting around 7 o'clock if you don't have the pay-per-view. Otherwise, you can always go to like a Buffalo Wild Wings or something like that. They usually have the pay-per-views free of charge sometimes as well. Alright, so that was our second Modest Meat wrapping. And by the way, good luck again to my girl Ronda. I love her, and I hope that within the next few years I get to see her be a bigger part of the WWE, but not as a result of any failure or lack of success in any other of her chosen career paths. All right, now speaking of WWE, that will wrap up the meat there and kind of work in a meaty balls juice here before we get in just a quickie or two in our balls deep thought of the day, and we segue, like I said, from Ronda Rousey, my girl, to the WWE. Now, a lot of juicy stuff in WWE has transpired since last week, most notably the firing of Hulk Hogan. Now, it's hard to accurately use the word firing. I read stories where he said he resigned, and technically the first story said that the WWE terminated their contract with him. That does not contradict a resignation. That can be the second act to follow. That can be the act that follows one's resignation. Then is the employer terminates the contract of the person who resigned. So I guess I would likely be more, it's believable. It's believable. Now, I personally think it's more likely that the second WWE found out that, everybody was going to hear about this, that they bailed and fired him. And him saying he resigned, they use the words termination to help kind of protect, him just a tiny bit, the very tiniest bit they could. And and then he would later announce that, it was in fact a resignation. But, regardless, he is no longer employed by WWE at all. He was working as one of the judges on their show Tough Enough, which coincidentally was in the news as well.